Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tori Brame and this is Holy City Mystic. Thank you for being here. If you would take a second, like and subscribe, I would love to see you back. So a few weeks ago, I did a video on how to capitalize on Mercury retrograde energy. A lot of people hate Mercury retrograde and they just kind of dread it and they blame everything on it and they don't really use the energy for what it's for. And so if you don't use the energy for what it's for, it's going to backfire. It's going to be a terrible time because suddenly you aren't riding the wave, you're under the wave. So I just wanted to take a quick minute and explain to you why retrograde planets are so important. I think it's a really important thing for people to know about, and I will eventually hopefully do a series where I talk about each of the retrograde planets and what to do during the times that they're retrograde to capitalize on that energy, and then also what it means when that planet is retrograde in your birth chart. I wanted to do a quick video talking about the importance of retrograde planets before I get into any of that. I think it was in one of Brene Brown's books. She talked about how she met a speaker at one of the events that she went to, and the speaker wasn't going to go and mingle and network after one of their meetings. She was just going to go back to her room and go to sleep. And so Brene Brown was like, "Aren't you going to come with us?" And she was just like, "There is a time to inhale and a time to exhale." That really struck her because she was just like, you know, for all the inhaling I'm doing, for all of the networking and work and, you know, all this speaking engagements and everything, I really do need to take time to exhale, to have a break. That I felt like was a really good example of how retrograde planets work when they go retrograde in the sky. So when a planet goes retrograde in the sky, it's going to backtrack over degrees that it has already passed. With some planets like Mercury or Venus, they move very quickly. So when they backtrack, they're going to backtrack over a lot of degrees. Other planets like Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, they're only going to backtrack over a few degrees. Pluto only backtracks over 1, 2, 3 degrees a year. Because it is so slow in its orbit, when it turns around and goes backwards, it's going to move very, very slowly. So what happens during these retrogrades? What is the energy that we need to pay attention to? First of all, each one of the planets rules something different, and it rules a different point in your chart. So when Venus is retrograde, it's going to work with beauty, self-worth, money, relationships, things like that. When Mercury goes retrograde, it's going to work with technology, transportation, communication, things like that. Now, when Pluto or Saturn goes retrograde, it's going to be a much heavier energy, and they're going to be retrograde for a lot longer of a time. The rarest retrograde is going to be Mars, and it only goes retrograde about every 2 years. And Mars has to do with action and the work that we do and the areas in our life in which we fight for ourselves or we fight for others. So when a planet is going retrograde, you have to look at what the planet is and what it represents. And then you also have to see it as that planet exhaling. That planet taking a break from what it normally does and backtracking over what it's already done and just kind of processing it, assimilating it. So you could have recurring themes that come up where, say, Saturn crosses a point in your chart in May, it retrogrades back over it in August, and then it turns direct and it goes back over it again in December. So each time it hits that point in your chart, you might have a recurring theme where you come up. Like, say you get in a fight with your partner in May, and then you guys go to therapy, and when it retrogrades back over in August, you get to that place where you're understanding each other's perspectives and you really feel like you're able to tackle that situation again. And then therapy ends, and in December, you guys go over that same point where that same conflict comes up, but you handle that fight differently. That is going to be like what each retrograde is, where it gives you an opportunity to back up, relook at a situation. You might have different things that come up that are along that same vein or have a little bit more of that storyline. And then when it goes back over that point again, you are going to have more confidence, you're going to have more information, and you're going to tackle it so much differently than you did when it first progressed over that point. There are so many factors that either make a retrograde relevant or not relevant to you. There are so many things it depends on, but you know, what your ruling planet is, where that planet is in your birth chart, where the planet is in the sky, moving over the points in your birth chart. So if some retrogrades you feel really hard, it's probably because either that planet is your Time Lord for that year, or it is crossing over a point that is very prominent, or it might just be your ruling planet. So it's like you feel every Jupiter retrograde because that is your ruling planet and it's just really significant to you. But other retrogrades you might not really feel. Like it might be, you know, Venus going retrograde, and it's like Venus really isn't that prominent in your chart. Venus in the sky when it's going retrograde isn't really going over anything that is either in a harsh angle or conjuncting any points as it's going over. So sometimes you really don't feel it, and that's totally okay. But if you can pay attention to retrogrades, work with each one, knowing that, okay, this is the time I need to step back, think about my relationships, think about how I am in relationships, and if I am the right person that I want to be. And I'm so disappointed in everybody else, but maybe it's time for me to take a step back and look at myself here. If you treat retrogrades in the way that their energy matches, you can get so much more out of them than just like, oh man, Jupiter's retrograde, I guess I'm not going to be lucky for the next 5 months or something like that. Like, you can really pay attention and take that time to step back and grow that energy in your life and look at that energy and make sure you are treating it the way that it needs to be treated. So you have that respect for it, so that when it goes direct, it's going to slingshot you into the next step. Instead of it just going direct and you really haven't done the work and you've just been miserable the last 6 months or whatever it's been, you are really going to capitalize on that energy. And then when it goes direct again, you have a fuller picture. You have more information about what that retrograde did in your life. So I hope this helps. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you next time.